Good afternoon. This is Teters Home Cooking again, and today we're going to be making cinnamon rolls from starter. I do not use yeast, but I use potato flakes and sugar mixed with water, and it sits for 3 to 7 days, and then every 3 to 7 days I can make dinner rolls, homemade bread, or cinnamon rolls. But today we're going to make cinnamon rolls, which I've already got stirred up, and we're ready to start that process. So the first thing, of course, that you need to do is to put flour on, lots of flour on your counter so that your rolls do not stick. And then this batch has been raising all night. This does not have any eggs in it. It doesn't have any yeast in it. So people that are allergic to those two things, this is a very good bread dough for them to use. And so it is, like I said, it's been raising all night. I stirred it up before I went to bed last night. And now I'm be working the flour into it. Usually I will take half of this dough, squeeze it in half, set it to the side, and I will make just dinner rolls with it on Sunday. But today I've had some other people wanting my cinnamon rolls, so we'll make 2 batches of cinnamon rolls. You can also use this dough to make bread. Just it'll make 2 big loaves of bread, or it'll make 20 dinner rolls and then a pan of cinnamon rolls. But today we're going to just make cinnamon rolls. So the first thing you do will be roll it out in a nice flat, and you'll have to maybe put a little more flour on it as you do that so that it doesn't stick to your rolling pin. Get it nice and flat. And it seems like sometimes mine will turn out big ones, little ones. You'd think as many as I've made, they'd be consistent, but I guess I'm not that consistent. But they always turn out good, is what people tell me. So, now the next step is to melting your butter. Now I do use like Blue Bonnet or Imperial. I don't use real butter. You can use real butter if you are a real butter person, but I just use plain old margarine. So I melted it, and then I will take it and spread it over my dough. And if it's, after you microwave it, if it's too warm, you might want to make sure it's not too warm, because it will then sort of eat into your dough and make holes in it, and you don't want that. So you just take your hand and you spread. This was a little more than a stick of butter, and you will use part of it in your pan. But you spread it out to the edges like that. And then I always use quite a bit in my pans, because with the sugar and the cinnamon and all that in the bottom, if you don't, they will stick, and you don't want sticky, you want sticky buns, but you don't want sticky pans. So you put a lot of butter in the bottom of your pan there. And now you put on just plain old white sugar. This usually 1/3 to 1/2 cup. You just sort of sprinkle it on there like this. And you can make them as sweet or unsweet as you want. But since my husband likes sweet, I usually put close to 1/2 cup, not quite, of sugar on, of white sugar on. And then I grab me a couple of handfuls of brown sugar. Now some people make their cinnamon rolls with all brown sugar, but I like both. So I'll put 2 or 3 little handfuls of brown sugar on that. Okay, then if you like cinnamon, then you just sprinkle the cinnamon as much as you like. If you just like sweet rolls, you don't have to put the cinnamon on. I have a little friend that doesn't care for cinnamon, so I when she comes, I don't put cinnamon on one end. So if you can do that, you can just put cinnamon on one end and leave the cinnamon off if you have people that don't care for cinnamon. Okay, now we're ready to roll these rolls up. So then you just sort of flip it over, and then you pull it towards you a little bit, tucking it in, and as you roll, you pull and tuck, make it a nice firm roll there. And if I've done it right, it shouldn't stick to my cabinet. There was a little sticky place there. So you can just scoosh up a little flour along the way there. And then you've got a nice roll. I'll grab my cutting board here, and then you just lay that right on top and sort of squeeze it out. And then I grab, get rid of some of this here, push that over to the side. Stick my pan here. Let me look at that. See if I got, there it is. I think I'm going to put a little more in there. Like I said, I don't want it to stick. All right, that should do it. All right, then I take my cutter, and then you cut them, almost an inch, not quite, maybe 3/4 of an inch, and put them in your pan. And so usually I go about 3 across, and then if I have some end pieces, I'll stick them over into this, make one row of sort of small ones, because some people will say, I want a little one, and that's so. And other people will say, I want a big one. So this way you satisfy everybody, see. So we're going to stick these 2 little ones over on that row, and then we'll turn them around, and we'll stick these in the pan, and then these will have to raise again. He flipped around a little bit. I'll turn him around. If they didn't come out quite enough, then you can just unroll that and roll it again, and see, you've still got a nice little cinnamon roll there. So, okay, we've got our first pan of cinnamon rolls. So that's what they look like after you've gone through the process. Now we'll do it again, because I've got another hunk of dough over here, but we'll make some more cinnamon rolls, because I promised a little girl that I would bring her cinnamon rolls today. This is what I usually have on Sunday dinner. I'll have dinner rolls, and then I'll always have cinnamon rolls, and sometimes we'll eat them with ice cream. A friend of mine started us eating them with ice cream, and they are very good with ice cream too. But you can make caramel nut cinnamon rolls with these also, and you just put brown sugar in your pan and butter, and then you put your nuts in there, and then you can have caramel nut cinnamon rolls if you want to be adventuresome. My niece got me started on the starter dough. I had tried making cinnamon rolls with yeast, and sometimes I didn't always have the best of luck, but I hardly ever have any failures with this starter. It's a slow rising dough, so you can't hurry it along. You just have to be patient. And some people that I've given my starter to, they said it just didn't work, and it's because they get impatient. So you just sort of have to make it up, and then you go off and you forget about it. And I've sent my dough to Texas, my starter to Texas, and I've given it to several people here in Macon. And so it's traveled around a little bit. Yep, see what I'm going to do here again? I'm going to unroll this little end stick the other end in the middle of it and roll it back up and stick it in my corner there. All right, so that is a batch of cinnamon rolls made in Teters' kitchen. Okay, here they come. Now I've melted my butter for my icing, and so I use a stick of butter. My daughters always say, no wonder your stuff is better than ours. You use so much butter. But that's just me. So then you use also a teaspoon of vanilla. Put that in your butter. You start adding powdered sugar. And this is 1/3 of a cup, and so we'll use several of these heaping cups until I get it to the consistency that I want it. So I'll just keep stirring it in. And then if it gets a little thick, another thing that I do is I can add some coffee to it. And that gives it a little mocha taste, or a little coffee taste there. So we're gonna need some more powdered sugar. So I'll just keep adding that. And then we're going to pour this over my cinnamon rolls. And then that seeps down through the cinnamon rolls. And they're really ooey and gooey. And especially if they're warm right out of the oven. And then you dollop some ice cream on top of that or beside it. And think you've died and gone to heaven. But anyway, that's what people tell me. I don't know. We eat some of them. I'll usually have one on Sunday when I have my Sunday dinner, and my husband will usually eat one, and then I usually give the rest of them away if there's any left. Sometimes both of my daughters are in home groups at church. I got a little bit too much powdered sugar in that, but we'll remedy that with some coffee here. And so one week I will send the extra cinnamon rolls home with one of my daughters, and she'll take it to her home group. And then the next week, the other daughter gets the leftovers. So I try to share the love. Like I said, I've got a couple of kids at church that like my cinnamon rolls, and so they'll come up and they'll say, Miss Janie, we need some cinnamon rolls. And so then I try to work that into my cooking schedule, is to take my little friends some cinnamon rolls. So we're just about there, because you want it where you can drizzle this over your cinnamon rolls. And a lot of people say, oh, that's way too sweet. Well, if you're going to have a cinnamon roll, a sweet cinnamon roll, you want it sweet. So then I just sort of take a tablespoon at a time and go over each roll. And then that melts down through the rolls, and it makes them nice and ooey and gooey, and they're not hard or crunchy. They're nice and soft on the inside then, because they've got all this icing running down through them. They probably, I watch Chopped a lot, and they're always talking about, oh, this is too sweet. So they probably wouldn't like my cinnamon rolls, because they are sweet. In my starter, might talk about that a little bit. My starter has 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 1/4 of a cup of potato flakes and 1 cup of water. And that's what you add to that jar before you start making your cinnamon rolls. There you go. There's Teters cinnamon rolls. Nice and sweet and very good, especially when they're taken right out of the oven. Goodbye. See you next time.